Michał Janek, Małe Piwo TV. Dzisiaj jesteśmy w wyjątkowym miejscu, browar Cantillon i przed Wami szef tego całego stowarzyszenia, Jean. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
If you would meet somebody in the world, just somewhere, that doesn't know the lambic, how you would describe it?
I will describe it as the most, or one of the most special beer in the world. For the people who never tasted lambic, I think that the best comparison possible is to say first that they will taste something between a product between the beer, the wine, and the cider world. It's so we are producing beer, we are working with cereals, but the long maturation and the taste are probably closer to wine and cider than beer.
And how long you have to keep your beers to be like totally sure about the quality of the beer in the end?
At least 1 year. So that's for the lambic. So we keep here in the wooden barrels the lambic at least 1 year before to use it for blend or to use it with fruits.
I guess that people that are watching this channel know more or less the proceed, how you make lambics or huzen and so forth. But what do you think? What is the most crucial moment of making lambic and huzen and so forth? Is it mashing, or it's boiling for quite a long time, or is perhaps aging in
the long maturation and the taste? The most important moment, it could be a bit strange for a brewer, but
keep your beers
opinion is the inoculation. So when the wort is cooling down on the cool ship, and it means that I don't play a role in this moment. It's a natural moment, but it's probably the most important, and also the maturation in the wooden barrel. There naturally we have to play a role. We have to pay a lot of attention in the maturation because we keep the beers for at least 1 year, but we are keeping some barrels for 3 years.
Right. And what is also unique about lambics, it's this moment of inoculation, as you said, because what's also original for the lambic brewery, that you are not brewing an entire year. You have only a specific time when you brew the beers. What is that time?
So to produce lambic, we need cold temperature. It means that we are brewing only during the winter time, from end October, begin November, till end March, begin April. So why winter? Because we need cold temperature during the night for the natural cooling, and because we need a yeast inoculation. And if we are brewing during the warm period, we have also a lot of bacteria in the air, present in the air. We have insects. Insects are the principal vector for bacterium, and it could be naturally a big problem for the fermentation. So that's the reason why a brew season in a lambic brewery is beginning end October to end March, begin April. Only 5 months, five months and a half.
And because of the inoculation, you don't know what will fall into the wort or into the beer. So actually every batch is different. So if you are the main brewer, okay, and like in the normal brewery, you know what to expect. How long you have to teach, what you have to learn during many years probably to know that, okay, this batch is good, or this beer, it's not worth to sell.
You never know. When you are brewing it, you never know if the batch will be better than another one. You know it after the fermentation, after 1 year. There you feel if the beer will be better than another one. It's but during the brew, it's impossible to have an idea. You have so different things playing a role in the fermentation that it's impossible to have even a small idea about the final result.
And the final results, how you judge? There are barrels that like do not survive. I mean, in the way that, okay, you just say that this barrel perhaps was somehow infected, and it's just not worth to sell.
I never produced, and the same for my father, I never produced an entire bad brew. Never. But on some batch, we can produce bad beer coming from one barrel. But it's not due to the beer, it's due to the barrel itself. So a bad cleaning, wood too old, or a problem with the wood. So it's very difficult to have an idea why the beer could be good or not. It's a question of nature, of the inoculation is playing a role, the temperature. As you see, we don't warm in the brewery. And so so we are following the natural temperature of the season. So warm in the summer, cold in the winter, and so a cold winter, for example, is important for the beer quality. So that's why I hope a cold winter this season, because the last season was no winter. So those variation in the temperature are important for the beer.
And what about a really harsh winter? Actually, like, okay, this not happens a lot in Belgium, but imagine that, I don't know, -10 average temperature will come to Brussels. Is that also bad?
It could be a good thing for the beer quality, a wrong thing for the fermentation, because when the temperature are very low, the fermentation, are taking more time, and it could be wrong for the beer maturation, but good for the beer quality.
Right. And important part of making lambics, it's storing them in these beautiful barrels. Is the origin of the barrels important for lambics, or it doesn't matter?
We need good barrels, but first of all, good barrels contained previously good things. So that's why we are working only with barrels coming from winemakers which are working in the right way of the production, or with barrel makers, but coming from the top as well. So we don't research something specific, but we research quality for the wood or for the wine, because we are working mainly with barrels contained wine before to be used here, and if possible, so wine, top quality products.
And that's like something. It's not new, but there's like a trend now in the brewery, in the beer world, beer aged in different kind of barrels, wine barrels, whiskey barrels, cognac barrels. Are you using? You said mainly wine barrels, but you also accept different kind of barrels?
We are working a bit with cognac barrels. We use it till early 90s port barrels, and each barrels containing something different previously is bringing something different in the lambic, but it needs time. After 1 year, lambic don't have time enough to extract what the woods contains previously. The beer needs at least 2 years, and after 2 years, time to time, it could be a wonderful surprise.
And actually, there is like a maximum time of storing beer in the barrel.
Maximum 3 years.
Maximum.
Maximum 3 years, because we don't top the barrels like some specific oxidized wine. I'm thinking here to the Jura wines, vin jaune. I'm thinking here about the sherry coming from Jerez in Spain. So they don't top the wine, and with the natural wood absorption, with the natural evaporation, we have air coming in the barrel, and the beer or the wine produce a film, a veil, to protect the liquid from the air present in the barrel. And after 3-4 years maximum, the lambic don't contain sugar anymore. No more sugar. Yeast can't continue to create this veil, and after 3 or 4 years, the beer can come in contact with the air, and naturally, if the liquid is coming in contact with the air, we create acetic, so the wrong acidity, because the lambic is a beer, it's an acidic beer, but with lactic. And if lambic begin to create acetic, it's close to a vinegar, and there the beer could be bad. So that's why we don't keep it for more than 3 or maximum 4 years.
Right. Okay. That was this part of production. Actually, I was always curious, and I was asking other brewers in the Belgium about that, but actually nobody gives me the final answer. I guess your answer would be the final. What about the bottles? Because like among many people that are drinking craft beers, if they see green bottles is an enemy. Why all the lambics actually, or most of them, are stored in green bottles? Like they have no thing about like the light intensity that have impact on the beer?
First of all, it's a tradition. Green, you have less light impact on the beers, maybe more than a brown bottle, for example. But it's we don't have here any kind of problem with those type of bottles. We keep here lambic for more than 30 years in both lambic or goes for more than 30 years without any problem. So if green is the wrong color for bottles to age it, why the great wines coming from France, coming from Italy, are bottled in green bottles? It's not for me, in my opinion. It's not an important thing. It's green is a very nice color. It's the color of the nature, and lambic is a natural beer. So
okay, so that's would be my question for entire life now. I will never ask about the green bottles ever. Somebody. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, lambic was not so much popular beer. Now it's like new hoppy beers. Now you have more sour beers. You are kind of rock star in the United States, no?
Yes, but if I am, it's because of my beer. I'm not the rock star. The real rock star is there. And indeed, 30 years ago, no one asked for a lambic or for a goose bottle. We fight it as lambic brewers. We fight to sell one bottle, and today, for this bottle, for the same bottle, 20, 30, 40 people are fighting for. It's because of the renewal of beer, of craft beers. This new story began early 90s, so a bit more than 20 years ago. And for lambic and for acidic beer, yes, since 10 years now, it's a real madness around sour beers, and especially around the breweries who never betrayed the product. And Cantillon is, unfortunately, one of the only brewery who never produce other things than traditional. I say unfortunately because a lot of lambic breweries in Belgium betrayed the beer and produce and or continue to produce industrial lambics.
If you would meet people like, okay, now we try to get more and more people involved in the beer revolution, like in Poland. So we try to advertise them new hoppy beers. Okay, that should they not be scared of more bitterness or more sourness. How you would convince another person that never drink lambic, who's whatever, to drink the sour beer is like not natural.
It's very difficult if you are a sweet beer drinker. I think it's totally impossible to enter in the lambic world. And if you want to do it, you have to do it step by step. So to begin with, probably with hoppy beers, and then with the acidic one. The acidic beers are probably the most difficult beer to appreciate and to like really. It's you need time to do it for sure. It's not you can drink a lambic for the first time and love it. You need a lot of time. But when you like such a beer, it's very difficult to come back and to drink again sweet beers and industrial things, because no.
We talk about past, we talk about present. How you see future for lambic beers?
Nice, but you know, things changed so fast. As I told you, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was always very difficult to promote such a beer, to preserve such a type of production. So right now, the future is really rose, nice, but we never know, never. But the demand is so huge everywhere in the world that let's say the future will be marvelous.
And with this marvelous answer, I would like to thank you very much for this interview.
My pleasure.
It was, I cannot even pronounce how grateful I am to meet with you and for this interview. Thank you very much. And ja wam bardzo dziękuję za te kilka minut tutaj w browarze Cantillon. Zapraszam was serdecznie do Brukseli, abyście odwiedzili ten browar, gdyż jest wyjątkowy. Małe Piwo TV, Michał Janiak, do następnego.